Welcome to the Nonprofits. We scour the internet searching for proof of deities and the supernatural. Despite not finding information to convince us of the existence of any God, we're here to tell you what we have found. So buckle up because the show is starting right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Cynthia, and today I am joined by some splendiferous hostesses with the mostesses that I'm going to introduce right now. Starting to my very far left, I believe this is the first time that we're actually on a show together. What's up, Mr. Blatant Blatheist?
What's happening, everybody? Yes, this is our first time together. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, we've been speaking in the virtual green room saying, April, tonight's the night, and we're going to feel all right. So make it hype, because tonight's the night, even though this is going to be airing on Sunday afternoon.
Mhm.
Next to Blatant, which I'm so happy that you are here, is one of my favorite rich Brits. May I say hello to Dr. Rich? What's up, Dr. Rich? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Not as rich as I'd like to be. Skin actually, but everything's great. How are you? How is the world?
I am doing just fine. Thank you for asking. And it was so
Awesome.
wonderful to be on the show with you again. Don't
Yeah,
tell
good to be
Richard
back.
Jillifer I said that she was one of my favorite rich Brits because
I
he might
won't
get
tell him. Not every time.
not every time, right? Just only when you get into an argument and you need
Yeah,
like something to like wait.
yeah.
By the way, Cynthia said. And thank you for being here, Dr. Rich. And then last but definitely not least, to my immediate left, let's say hello to Aaron Jensen. Welcome back, Aaron. How are you?
YOLO, I'm great, and my silence costs money. So,
Oh, remind me never to tell you a secret because I have no money to give you. All right. And with that being said, it's great to have you on the show, Aaron.
thank you.
And this is a show, you are very welcome, that is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promoting of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And today we have some topics that we're going to be talking about, guys. You know, that whole scouring of the internet and finding things that we want to say to you. Well, it's going to start happening right now. But before we do that, I have to say titles. So, segment one title is Removing Muhammad from the Mountain. Then, next, we have a shit internet apologists say where Rapert's mission across the United States is coming to pass. We'll talk about it. Segment three is How Christian is Christian Nationalism. And then final round the bend is trans beer gets right wing backlash. And as with all of our shows, links to today's topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. And a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the nonprofit's Facebook page every Friday night. Actually, it's a Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. Well, all right. Well, we about to go ahead and get this party started quickly. And
Mhm.
I believe that we are going to have which one of you? Is it Dr. Rich?
Me.
Go ahead and take us into segment one, please.
I certainly will. Here's one close to my heart. Now, I have in my past, amongst other things, taught art history. And as somebody who's done a module on art history and a history degree, I know that one of the things of art history is not just looking at pretty pictures from the past and going, oh, isn't that nice? A lot of it is looking at art that challenges you, that makes you think about new things in new ways, and learning that historical taboos aren't modern taboos and vice versa. And you can find that out often through art. Now, sometimes things get in the way of that. And over in Minnesota at Hamline University, a professor called Erica Lopez Porter decided she wanted to expose people to a time when presenting pictures of a certain Abdul Qasim Muhammad ibn Abd Allah ibn Abd al-Muttalib al-Hasim, or Muhammad as we know him, was fine. And so she said to the class, if anyone's got a problem with this, then you don't have to be here. It is sensitive. I understand that there's now a problem with showing Muhammad's image, so fine. But we're going to delve in this because in the Ottoman Empire, in the Turkish regions, it was quite common to put these kind of things, these artworks out there, Muhammad with a fiery halo, that sort of thing. So she then showed the art, something I've done, not necessarily that many times. And of course, there was the one guy in the class who had to complain and go, oh no, but it's so offensive. Unfortunately, we live in a world where the uni president, Fenice Miller, decided, or seems to have decided, that took umbrage with that and didn't renew Erica Lopez Porter's contract. Now, that's, to me, not right. I will see what others people think. But the thing is, Miller is now retiring, and she claims that her handling of this affair had nothing to do with it. And I don't particularly think that's necessarily true. But Blatant Blatheist, what do you think?
I'm kind of torn slightly because I get that doing something that an entire community of people will almost certainly take offense to is not something to like aspire to. But at the same time, my entire online presence is absolutely something that an entire community of people will certainly take offense to. So I have to, in this case, side with the teacher who, in my opinion, took every possible measure to ensure that the act was done with the least amount of offense. It was done tastefully. It was done purposefully for educational purposes. It wasn't meant to be malicious. You could tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that within the Muslim faith that is taboo to show a depiction of Muhammad. I get that. And that's cool. Just like abortion is a sin. If you're a Christian, that's the way they see it. So, person of that faith, you can live by that. You do what you do or don't do for what you feel is right or wrong. Just don't tell me what I can do. Period.
Yeah, I think we touched on this last time I was on, but you're gonna get offended in this life, but you don't have the right to not be offended. You're gonna go through life, and people are gonna do things that you're not gonna like, that you don't want them to do. But too bad, you're gonna be offended. But this teacher, she like Blatant said, she didn't set out to offend anybody. She wasn't using racist or bigoted language or anything like that. She actually told the class, okay, we're going to be showing a depiction of Muhammad. If for any Muslims that are in the class, you can leave and not suffer any consequences, which I really appreciated that. And I didn't really appreciate the backlash that she received for it. And I don't like that somebody went behind the teacher's back and reported it to the dean instead of confronting the teacher themselves. It seems like we have a confrontation problem almost in our culture, where we're really afraid to go directly to somebody and say, hey, I kind of had a problem with what you did, and talk it out. And then I'm kind of on neither person's side. Like, I don't think the teacher shouldn't lose their job. And I don't think the leader of the university should lose her job either. I think everybody was most likely trying to do the right thing, the best thing. And rather than having everybody get fired and lose their jobs and have their lives, affected, maybe just get people in a room and talk about it and come to an agreement on what went wrong, what they can do better next time. We see a lot in culture that one mistake and you're out. And I don't think that should be the norm. The norm should be people learning from their mistakes and giving people an opportunity to learn from those mistakes. It's not like the teacher had this problem many, many, many times and had been told, you need to solve this problem this way, or that this professor or the president of the college had this problem with teachers before. This was all kind of a first-time offense for everybody. I just wish people had talked it out and not been so reactionary.
Yeah, I hear that. But I'm glad that you brought up a specific part concerning this story, Aaron, which is the president of the university is actually being forced to resign because of the way that other faculty felt that she mishandled this whole situation. and the person who actually complained was a student in Professor Lopez Prater's class about the depiction or being able to see Muhammad in a piece of artwork, even though he had the option of opting out. And he ended up going to a local Muslim group that complained, and then President Miller actually said, "Hey, well, you shouldn't have did this. You offended an entire group of people. You got to go." But I thought it was kind of interesting that even though it was this one group that complained about it, there's a national. It was a national like Muslim group, according to the AP article, actually did not find offense in what the teacher did. They said there's plenty of like Islamic Islamic phobic actions, terrorism against like Islamic people that's out there, and this particular professor actually showing a piece of artwork that is appropriate for art history class to speak about the art history that's happening in this particular piece was not considered that. However, when it comes to stuff like this, like unfortunately, it gets like into the weeds because we get into subjectivity instead of objectivity, and that often happens when we talk about religion. But I am curious to think what you guys think, and I think that I want to throw this over to Dr. Rich, since you actually taught art history on the university level. Do you think that the other faculty members actually pushing President Miller to resign because of the way that she handled was a good move?
Again, I wonder what happened there, because it's unusual for, well, at least in universities I've heard this, for people to just start campaigning against the head of department. Poor head of departments get it rough. I don't know anyone who lasts more than 2 or 3 years as a head of department, because frankly it's a miserable job and I wouldn't ever want to do it. So don't offer it me, anybody. Hope the answer's no. So I can't believe it was just, we're going to vote and we're going to get rid of her. There will have been some kind of negotiation. There will have been some kind of discussion. It makes me think what else has gone on behind the scenes there. Why is that it got to the point where they felt they had to do a bold vote and say we'd like you to resign? Because it shouldn't have. If it has been a jump there, then shame on them. That's not how you deal with it. But if they try to discuss it with Miller and say, look, we don't think this is quite right, then kind of shame on her as well for not meeting halfway or something. I'm wanting to know more about this anyway, because there's certain things like the quote that you got from Miller: never has Hamline University violated anyone's academic freedom. Is a very cleverly worded thing, because teaching is not necessarily an academic endeavor. As a professor, you have two lives. One, you're a teacher, a professor. The other, you're an academic researcher. So she may never have stopped her from looking at depictions of Muhammad as a academic for research purposes, but will have a go at her for teaching them, and that sentence will allow that to happen. She's not lying. It's kind of worrying. But yeah, I want to know. I need to know more what's going on behind the scenes there, because I can't believe it was a simple, she did this, she said, right, I'm not renewing a contract, which makes it sound like she was a precarious contract anyway, which is a whole other can of worms that are not open. And then they suddenly voted to get rid of it. There has to have been some other process there, really.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that the article is giving us as much information, and I didn't really find like any other type of information on my own, like research concerning the entire due process that faculty went through. It almost just sounds more so like we mad, so you got to go type thing.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, like, and especially like when you brought up that whole quote about, this particular university has never violated anybody's academic freedom. I was like, well, you gotta do.
Yeah.
Just
and
say
then
it.
Technically they didn't, because it was teaching, not research. So it's being clever with your words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
you know,
students in
it
politics.
could all be coincidence, right? Everybody's got a reason. It's like she's been away from her husband for a long time because of COVID,
Yeah.
and she
Mhm.
said she wants to spend more time with her husband. But then again, she's not officially retired until June 30th of next year, which
Yeah.
seems kind of suspect. And the teacher, they could have just not renewed her contract for various reasons, but I never
Yeah.
heard any other reasons that they didn't renew her contract.
Oh,
So it sounds like a little bit more than just coincidence to me.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I did a good. I don't know.
Yeah.
but but yeah, go ahead, Rich.
I was,
What
I
else
was
do
just
you
going
think
to
about
say,
it?
to go into that kind of worms I mentioned a tiny little bit. One of the things that happens in academia, both in the UK and America, is this system of precarious contracts, which is you've got it for that long, and at the end of it, the money for you has run out.
Hmm.
And until you get tenure or until you've embedded yourself into a university, you might as well have tenure because I can't imagine you not being there. You're part of the furniture,
Hmm.
which is what I'm doing. You are always at risk of them getting to the end and just saying, right, we can't find any funding for you. So sorry, bye. So we don't know if that's happened either. So there's kind of, I need to do a really deep data dive, but I tried and there's nothing there. So, hey.
Yeah. But B, what else did you think? Even with the question that I posed specifically about President Miller being kind of forced to retire early, what are your thoughts concerning that?
I still I'm torn. I can't really call it because it's really not enough information, and just judging the book by its cover with what we have to go off of, like it's a messy situation. And dealing with these situations, somebody's gonna always walk away pissed off. But I kind of don't agree with her being pushed out for it.
Yeah,
But then again, just like Aaron said, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Maybe
yeah.
this isn't a first defense for her. You know what I mean? So it's messy. I know that it's messy.
Yeah, it is. I know one of the things that I'm sad about, and this is only because I'm about to play the identity politics card. She is the first Black woman who was a president of a university from this particular university,
Mm.
and and it's so little of Black women actually like representing these higher echelons in administration and on a university level, whether they are here in America or even abroad. So when you see a person that actually has achieved that status, you hate for their their tenure or their career to be marred by some type of scandal, right? Even like it can happen, like it's not like Black people like are can be shunned away from any type of I don't know, like some murmurings in the background as far as like your work ethic is concerned or whatever,
Yeah.
and I hate that tried to put that whole model minority standard on her, like, well, you should have known better because you're a Black woman, right? But but at the same time, like I hate that this is happening the way that there is, and I know that in my notes I said that there are no winners here. I
Yeah.
think that the students are robbed of being able to actually have a more expansive curriculum when it comes to art history, just because of one person's offense. I believe that another thing that the teacher was really just trying to create a comprehensive subject matter according to her job, right? And she was just really just trying to do her job and actually like show students like, hey, this is something that happened in history, let's go ahead and talk about it. I remember taking art history when I was in university as well, and we were exposed to all types of different art, and from depictions all the way from cave periods up into the modern senses and modern eras, and some of it was weird, but whatever. But still, like, regardless of that, it should never be to the point where people are robbed of anything like that. And then President Miller being out to be pushed out because like other, and I think that, and I'm just going to pose this and then we're going to move on, and whoever wants it, do you think that the reason why the faculty kind of like got together and said, President Miller has got to go, because they were triggered or concerned about if they were going to put forth lesson plans that could be considered controversial, that their jobs could be in danger too. I'm going to you, Dr. Rich, because that's your world.
100%. She'll have shown that image to ask a bunch of questions like, why do you think it is that one particular group of Muslims thought it was fine to depict it? What's different about these depictions to depictions of other things? But all this kind of stuff. And they'll all do that. This is a liberal arts college. It's a humanities college. And humanities, as I always tell my first year students in the first lesson, is not physics. Physics, if you don't want to be offended or upset or go through difficult subject matter that might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's enriching, go and study quantum mechanics, because that's, although there's quite a lot of arguments in that from what I hear, and most of the fights in the pub tend to be those guys, but it's, it will make anybody in a college like that think, right, so what can I do? What can I teach? Where are the lines? Because even if I say what we're doing this week is really uncomfortable, we're going to study X artist who is accused of X, Y, and Z, but it's important we understand the context, blah, blah. That's all got to go out the window. What do you teach then? I mean, I'd find it very difficult personally. But I'd then go and have a conversation with Miller, probably with a bottle of wine in hand, because that's how academia works, and see where we could meet and see what we could do. So
I need to get into academia then. But Aaron, you had
so much wine. So much wine.
But Aaron, you had a question. Did you want to
it's along these same lines as where do we draw the line? What do we determine as okay to teach and what's not okay to teach? I kind of fall on the line that everything should be okay to teach. If I go and take a history class, for example, as a humanist, as a non-religious humanist, I'm probably going to see some images of wars and atrocities that people have committed that are probably going to offend me, or movies that are going to offend me. If you look at popular culture, there might be movies that I might not appreciate. Not all humanists like gore and blood and violence and sex and things like that. So I think there's always going to be something that offends you. And I wonder is there any line that's too far to go when you're teaching people about being human? I mean, these are all things that we're teaching are things that people have done, right? It's not like some magic fairies come down and offense fairies come down and done offensive things. It's all things that humans have done. So as I'm talking, we're kind of working it through out loud as I'm talking. I think it all should be okay. And when you go to college, maybe you should just check your offense at the door. If somebody's not being purposely offensive, maybe you just need to check your offense at the door or keep it to yourself.
That should be on a college application. Check your offense at the door. I don't know if that's gonna. I don't know. I don't know. But BB, can you wrap us up and take us out? Because I think I'm just gonna continue to say I don't know. I
can't stop picturing the offense fairy now. Just coming. I know she didn't. I can't stop saying it in my head. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is just another story that makes me beg this country to actually separate religion from everything else. Let them have theirs. Let us be in reality, I guess. I want to live in a future where my every action isn't dictated by somebody else's belief. That's insanity, especially when we live in a democracy. Big quotes.
Fair quotes. Yeah, no, I hear you, and I mean, because like any of us, I can think of like going into school now, being an atheist, and I know that like we would have to probably take like other history classes, especially I studied music, so there would have been a lot of stuff on the church, especially and it was like when in music history, like we did. Matter of fact, we sang a lot of masses in choir because that's the bulk of the music. That's what it was. And what if I say, well, I'm an atheist, I don't want to sing this mass stuff? Like they would be like, F. I
definitely remember doing my King of Kings forever. I definitely remember doing that.
Exactly. Don't get me to singing no Gloria in Excelsis Deo. Don't let me do it. I'll do it. And that's public domain. I just wanted to put it out there. But regardless of that, thank you to our veteran and new viewers for getting us over the 12,000 subscriber hump. Thank you so much. So if you are watching us now and haven't subscribed yet, get on that. And once you subscribe, like this particular video and all of our videos and ring that bell so that you will always know when a new nonprofits episode premieres every Sunday at 3 p.m. But you knew that already because obviously you here right now. And then share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your coworkers, the neighbor guy that you really don't like. We really need to come up with a new line, and anyone and everyone else. And let's get the word out so that we can start helping fundraising. And also, dear viewer, listener, and both, are you aware that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Well, you should be. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes of the nonprofits, the flagship show of the ACA, the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, and even our archive shows. You don't want to miss a single episode. And with that being said, I believe that we're going to go on to segment numero dos, and that would be you, Aaron, taking us in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so this next article is from Right Wing Watch, written by Kyle oh boy, I didn't pronounce it. Mantila. I hope that's right. Titled, "The National Association of Christian Lawmakers Seeks to Get Its, quote, biblical worldview spread across the nation." So the article starts out with just the reason they're writing is because they just passed a law in Arkansas that Governor Huckabee signed into law that prohibits transgender people from using the bathroom of the gender they identify with. Instead, they have to use the bathroom of the gender they were assigned at birth. But the majority of the article talks about this National Association for Christian Lawmakers, I believe that's what they're called, and how they're literally trying to turn the country into a biblically based, Christian-based country. And one of the arguments they say is that this country was founded on Christianity, and it was a Christian nation. And that's not true. Anybody that does a little bit of research knows that this was a secular country founded outside, without religion. And if you don't believe me, there are many people that have made the argument way better than me. There's a great book by Andrew Seidel called The Founding Myth, which basically tears apart this idea that this is a Christian nation and that we should follow Christian laws and Christian rules and things like that. One of the curious things I found about this article is this description of Judeo-Christian. And if you read the book I mentioned earlier, The Founding Myth, Judeo-Christian is kind of a made-up word. It doesn't actually mean anything. There's no such thing as Judeo-Christian. They're separate religions. But they want to restore these Judeo-Christian values to our country. And I don't think the people that want to do that really understand the values that are in the Bible. When I understand the Bible, things like when you lust after somebody, that's a crime. So there's thought crime. Sex can be a crime. Pregnancy and pregnant women belong to the government, and being pregnant can sometimes be a crime. Having failed pregnancies can be a crime. Women can't vote or hold office. Making fun of prophets warrants a death penalty. Touching of religious artifacts warrants death penalties. Not committing genocide can have consequences for you. And we can go on and on about all the values, the Christian value, Judeo-Christian values we can find in the Bible that I really don't want part of this country. Blatant, what do you think?
For me, the second I saw Huckabee Sanders, I was already over this segment. So I'll just start there. So the legislation, y'all know I can't say that word, legislation that she put forward was actually made by this group, these National Association of Christian Lawmakers. Already sounds great just on its face. But like you said, Aaron, this is a group that they've already expressed their desire to install godly leaders into every level of American government, aka Christian Sharia law. And what amazes me and annoys me to no end is the pure hypocrisy from these people, because these are the same people that scream about my constitutional rights when we say protect children with common sense gun laws. When it's infringing on their rights, it's a problem. And then and only then are we to cite the Constitution, right? So, by the way, they actually misinterpret these, like for centuries, they've just like done what they wanted to with these rights. because the moron that's wearing woodland camo, holding his custom AR-15 for his dumbass Christmas card, he's not a part of any well-regulated militia. I can guarantee you that. But when it comes to the separation of church and state, everybody conveniently misplaces those high standards for upholding the principles of our founding fathers. Speaking of founding fathers, Rich, what do you have to say? So annoyed.
Anyway, yeah. I was going to bring up the First Amendment because I've heard that you Americans have this thing called the Constitution, and I've heard that the kind of people who pass these laws think it's really, really, it's gospel, which is ironic, and that nothing can be changed, and that you can't get rid of any of the amendments. Which, to quote a famous comedian, yeah, you can. It's called an amendment, but it's odd that they want these religious ideas, or let's face it, they want their cherry picked from the Bible that suits their political ideals parts of the Bible. You know, the idea that Jesus said give all your money away and just basically follow him with no cash. No, not that one. Keep our money. It's terrifying. I mean, I've said this before in previous episodes. I live in a country where we literally have our head of state is the head of a church, and we have representatives from that religion in our one of our houses of government, the House of Lords, and somehow that keeps them down, makes them behave themselves, because they know if they exercise too much power, we'll go off with you, get out of here. We're not having that, you know. It's not going to happen. You grew there. So they turn up to the House of Lords and they do a quiet little vote now and again. They run away, and the king never, ever, ever, and the queen before him never, ever, ever use the religious part in any political way. She'll do some incantation or whatever when she's making the speech, and he'll do the same to God. But that's about it. And it's a weird paradox that you have written in your constitution. No one's religion is better than anybody else's, and that's that. And yet loads of people say we're Christian, not Judeo-Christian. Let's see how the likes of Sarah Huckabee Sanders would like it if you actually lived under Jewish law strictly. But anyway, and yet we have these religious people, and we say no religion, and just keep it separated anyway. I'm rambling on now. So Cynthia, what do you think? Am I rambling correctly or incorrectly? It's usually incorrectly, let's face it. You're quiet.
I was muted. My bad. And I had whole sentences that's coming out of my mouth. I was
It
like,
was
well,
my fault for my ramble.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that nonprofits, I think that like one of our auditioning is, can you ramble and or rant? Or can you do both at the same time, just showing how skillful you really are? I digress. Let us talk about this particular thing. You know, first of all, like, Blatant, I feel you, especially like when you were talking about how the Christian nationals in government specifically are always screaming about, we want to erode transgender rights, and or we want to get rid of woke books, or we want to erode LGBTQ people, and let's go ahead and reactivate marriage only between a cis man and a cis woman, or even we're going to even do worse things for a person with a uterus having no bodily autonomy whatsoever. Yet we're constantly dealing with mass shootings in the United States, and everybody just seems to be handcuffed. And and they talk about Drag Storytime Hour being like the number one groomer of children, which is totally not. But we can't come up with common sense gun laws in order to actually protect children. It's insane. But one of the things that I wanted to really bring up, I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at the companion article from, I believe, from Rolling Stone, that talks about the founder of the NACL, and his name is Mr. Jason Rapert, and he's actually our architect of a lot of these really shitty laws. Sorry, crew, about my cussing, but he is across the nation when it comes to like, again, like what I was mentioning before, like, the transgender laws, especially like the bathroom laws. Transgender people cannot participate in sports, have to carry the markers of assigned at birth, that they were assigned at birth. I mean, giving them a hard time depending on what state that they are when it even comes to like changing their name and their identity markers on their IDs. I mean, this goes on and on and on and on and on. And the thing about it is that he has been doing this thing for a very long time, especially since he was actually elected to the Arkansas State Senate back in 2010. I pulled up a little information, and hopefully I can get through it pretty quickly. But one of the things that he actually believed even back then about banning abortion, even in the process of rape and incest, as well as banning any exceptions for health of the mother. So even if, like, we talk about believe in the past about ectopic pregnancies, where you are 100% guaranteed to lose the baby because the baby is forming outside of the uterus, then he would not give even any type of credence to that. So let's just throw everything about medical science out the window because Jesus. um he even part of it said that in January 2016, when the Supreme Court denied the state petition for writ of, I wish I can say this word, is Cynthia. I wish that I took Latin back in the day, to review a case dealing with stopping the 12-week ban for when it came to abortion, specifically in Arkansas. And at that particular time period, we had like mostly like a Democratic executive branch, and we had a more balanced Supreme Court. So a lot of these different laws that we are seeing right now wouldn't have happened if we didn't have if we had that particular court that continued on. Yeah, sorry about that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Miss your girl. But this was also like a Tea Party person. And he also had like issues with, Barack Obama. He said some really racist things, even though the NACL said that we're against racism, yet you're racist. The list just goes on and on. He's just really a really funky person. See, I was about to say something else, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and stop now. See, Dr. Rich, I was just rambling just to you, just so I can go ahead and talk about Jason Raper, who actually started, he only just started this organization in 2020, and that's where I'm going to stop. BB, what you got to say?
I was just going to say that you hit the nail on the head with a couple of points that I wanted to make, because of course this entire thing is just to further demonize the trans community. That's what they do because reasons, I guess. Like maybe it's because they don't actually have any agenda other than staying in power. So they fearmonger about identity to draw attention away from the very real threat, the actual threat of gun violence. So we just gonna keep on going in that cycle. And they do this not only to avoid being accountable for what's happening, but they do it to remain in power. So they have to protect their donors being what? Manufacturers. So while everybody is screaming about the wrong acronym right now, they're talking about LGBTQ, but the acronym that's actually endangering our children is NRA. Let's look at them for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the two great commandments in Christianity, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. There's a little bit of the golden rule in there, right? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If they were really wanting to make a Christian nation, they would focus on those things, right? But they're not. They're focusing on, gun rights, not protecting children. They're focusing on transgender people. It's really interesting. This has nothing to do when people say that they want a godly country. They're trying to make us more Christian. They're not interested at all in making people Christians and making people better. They're interested in accruing power. That's the only conclusion I can come to. And and they all seem to be for bodily autonomy when it comes to their bodies. Like, don't force me to take your immunization, your COVID vaccine. I don't want nothing to do with it. But no, you can't have control over your pregnancy and your body when you get pregnant. Sorry, that's there's a lot of hypocrisy in these groups, and it just drives me crazy and makes me want to scream and yell. Rich, how about you?
Yeah, hypocrisy is the word. There's a certain group, and we have it over here too, who they basically, their whole, as far as I'm concerned, their whole outlook on the universe is I'm a hypocrite and I'm proud of it. They seem to have this, everybody should be responsible for their own actions, except for me, it's their fault. That seems to be the mindset, and they always find the there to put the fault on, so their followers can point at that there. Over here right now, it's immigrants coming across the channel from terrible wars across the world. That's who our government like to point at and go, it's their fault. Our economy's in a mess, and we go, Brexit, and they go, no, it's their fault. So it's, it's always someone. And I can't speak about the guns thing. I'm on record as a non-American saying, your relationship with guns, you do know how weird it is, right? We all look at you and go, but they're guns. What's the thing? It's just, so yeah, it's very strange that. But the way that they are using trans people as the latest. I saw a thing recently about HIV and AIDS in the 80s, and the way the same people, sometimes literally, were talking about homosexuals at the time. I was like, "Oh, I've heard that recently." Echoes from the past, eh?
There's no new thing under the sun, says the Bible, and we're always going to find some type of group that we will scapegoat in order for us to not deal with the big elephant in the room. And I don't know, this seems apropos to the United States. This is kind of what we do. I think of, like, when slavery was abolished here in 1865, and then all of a sudden you were seeing like black codes and a vagrancy laws to specifically to, like, black people who may be out and they are not. Oh, well, you're supposed to be working. Well, you're not working. We're just going to go ahead and lock you up. And now it's convict leasing. And then we've got slavery by another name. And, and then, like, going on and on, we always find like some type of scapegoat group. When we go to when we go towards the Pacific, the scapegoat group became the Chinese. When during the 80s, the scapegoat group came immigrants coming from the southern border, still is. Then now it's the LGBTQ people. Back in the medieval times, the scapegoat groups were Jews. Like this is something that we do in human history, instead of actually dealing with the actual problem. And I don't understand, for, like, especially like a group of people who talks about how much they love children and they don't want to see them groomed or harmed or anything like that. They would still not take care of the actual thing that's causing them harm. It's absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, Rich, I'm coming to you because, like, I share your sentiment. I don't know what the hard on is about guns here, and it's weird. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, my two-way rights. I'm like, we last time I checked, Dr. Rich, your people is not trying to invade us no more.
No, ironically, being as it's talking about US-American relations, the only thing we have that kind of passion for is tea, and no one's died over tea. People have died over a bad cup of tea, but not over tea. I was just going to say, I actually once read a medieval document from the 13th century, written in Latin, that the best translation for the thing in it was, "Those foreigners coming over here taking our jobs." So it's a very old thing.
See? Yeah, they're taking out their jobs. Well, let's go ahead and just wrap up this segment so that we can go ahead and move on. Let's go get some final thoughts. BB, I'm coming to you. Let's start.
I just wanted to actually touch on one thing that you said, Cynthia, about how the slave trade just turned into a prison trade type of system. So slavery under a new name. Right. The last prisoner that was in that system died, I think, a few months before Joe Biden was born. So our current president was born a few months after the last slave died in prison. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, I hate this segment. May the made up deity in the clouds have mercy on your made up souls.
Rich.
Me again. Yeah, it's all a very, very strange state of affairs, the way that the certain groups like to look at certain people and say it's they're the problem, let's legislate against those, or they're anti-Christian. And especially given that, like I said before, they use this term Judeo-Christian, not Abrahamic. You notice that the Muslims are shut out. Funny that, but Judeo-Christian. And I guarantee you that if someone said to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, "Here are the laws of the Torah, the Jewish code, you could implement those," she'd go, "Oh, no," because she likes wearing a nylon shirt with a denim jeans, so she'd go way away from that. So you know,
no mixed fabrics. Aaron, what's your final thoughts?
When you're in a healthy relationship, you make I statements. I'm like, I need this or I need that. And when you demonize other groups, you end up making they statements like they are the problem. They have this or they need to do this. And that's almost never the case. It's almost never them. It's almost always you or I. I am always the problem. And I need to look at inward and fix the problems that I have. Don't fall for the rhetoric about other people being the cause of problems. Look inward on how we can make things better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, even and I'll just say this before we move on. It specifically in the body politic for the United States, there are really proper conversations about how some groups are used against other groups in order to disenfranchise them, especially when we're talking about employment. Two groups going after the same jobs because we have not figured out how to make a quality of living that's actually something that all of us can take advantage of, which we totally can do. But I guess we're just so married to class and things of that nature that we just can't get out of it. And I really feel like the Tea Party people have really cleaved onto Christian nationalism, which this concept, as we have just discussed, is not new. And even the article has the Rolling Stone article specifically has pointed that out, how these particular sentiments is something that has been recycled over the years. And unfortunately, we're not the better for it. Moving on. How y'all feeling? Anybody need a break? Somebody need some wine?
I feel better now that it's over.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Just wait till the next segment, though.
Right. Yeah. That part. But before we get there, let me just go ahead and just tell the people that if you can arrange to be in the Austin area on Sunday, April 30th of this month, consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at noon on Sunday, and parking is where you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. And if you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library on the last Sunday of each month. So keep watching this show, The Nonprofits, which is the flagship show of the ACA, and also our website, atheist-community.org, for the news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. And also, have you asked yourself, I really love the content of the ACA creates, but I wish there was a way that I could get it all the time. I have this conversation with myself like every day. Well, then you are covered, my friend. So make sure you check out our brand new 24/7 AXP TV live stream. You can tune in at any time of the day to experience a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from the 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. So watch or simply listen to your favorite host and discover some new hosts that you've never heard of. So make sure you visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join the fun. And speaking of fun, let's talk more about Christian nationalism. Because why not?
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay! And I think that's me, so make me big on the screen. Shout out to the crew. Oh my goodness. So, guys, this is How Christian is Christian Nationalism. It is a New Yorker article by Khalifa Sana, and it was posted on March 27, 2003. So this is an interesting article because it actually just goes down the line of taking Christian sentiments and then comparing them to Christian national sentiments to see if there's some type of correlation. And it's kind of interesting, even though like read the article, because like some of the things that we did talk about in the past when we discussed Christian nationalism is like some of the work from Andrew Whitehead and Samuel L. Perry when they actually started talking formulating surveys around the following premises to actually get or gauge ideas concerning Christian nationalists or people who actually have that particular sentiment. Some of like the following premises that they brought up was the federal government should declare the United States a Christian nation. The federal government should advocate for Christian values. The federal government should enforce strict separation of church and state. The federal government should allow the display of religious symbols in public places. And the success of the United States is part of God's plan. And also the final one was when they actually got the results of it, that the with the exception of the federal government should enforce strict separation of church and states, those who have separation of church and state, rather, those who actually had the leaning towards Christian nationalism were in agreement with all of these premises. But even with that being said, I think that it still raises the question for people who may follow a more mainline, middle of the road, centrist view when it comes to Christianity, as far as looking at like some of the things that we are seeing in our body politic and how Christian nationalism is playing out, especially when we're talking about laws. And you will have like some people who may even not necessarily consider themselves that extreme when it comes to Christian nationalism, may still keep some of those sentiments in mind. I can even think of like some work that PRRI has done around that same type of same type of sentiment, especially when they were interviewing mainline Protestants and mainline Catholics versus Christian nationalism, and found out that there were actually some people who were part of these particular denominations that shared the same sentiments as Christian nationalists. And even the article points out that you even have some Black Christians who would be considered the more left of the body politic in the United States also sharing these sentiments too. So with that being said, how Christian is Christian nationalism? Or are they all the same, or they're not? Dr. Rich, I'm coming to you. What do you think?
This is a tough one because it gets down to what is a Christian, and there's a Scotsman somewhere wondering whether he exists. So I'm not sure we can go too far down that route, but yeah, there's a lot of Christianity seems to be very. I mean, I think about the actual teachings of Jesus. He was very, very big on a particular commandment that says, "Thou should not covet thy neighbor's anything," which is really not very capitalist. I mean, I'd say the entire United States' economy is built upon coveting your neighbor's asses. But
and assets.
Yeah, and assets. And so there's that one, and there's quite a few other things. I mentioned getting rid of all his stuff and following him. Well, they'll follow him, but get rid of their stuff now. They quite like their cars. And there's that old eye of a needle. We'll not go there. But so, what is Christian? I'm not going to get into the what is really Christian thing because, like I say, Scottish ancestor slowly disappearing in the background. But it's alarming that the cherry pick Christianity is seen as enough of a force that we care. That's the main thing that I worry about. Why should there should be some tiny bunch of weirdos in the corner that we just look at them? They think the Earth is 6,000 years old and that we should be putting laws against trans people. What a bunch of weirdos! But they're not. They've actually got power. How is this possible? How is this fringe group? I suspect a percentage of them think the Earth is flat. I bet you anything. That. How have they got so much power and influence? I mean, how? Someone explain to me how. Please, Aaron, how?
Well, it's built into our Constitution. It's built into the Senate. The Senate exists to give power to the minority group in the country, right? People in less populous states, so in the way that the government in the United States work is every state in the country has 2 senators that gets sent to the Senate, and then we have a House of Representatives where it's population based, where basically every X number of people get represented by a representative. Well, that means that because every state gets 2 people, regardless of how many people are in it, people in Wyoming, they have the most powerful vote in the country because that's the least populous state, and yet they have 3 representatives to their few 100,000 people. And then you look at California and they've got millions of people and only like 23 or 24 votes, essentially. And so it's built into the very fabric of the Constitution is to give minority groups a voice in the country. And when you give the minority groups in the country, you're going to have things like Christian nationalism creeping up. You're going to have racist views come up. You're going to have people that don't hold the majority view, have loud voices and have power in our country and in our government. And is that the way we want our government to work? I don't think it's very democratic, but on the flip side, if I was in the minority, I'd want my voice to have a little bit more to be heard. I think the intent is probably to help slavery, to be honest. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I imagine that's there so that the slavery could continue to be an institution in this country. I'm not a scholar. Like I said, I'm not a scholar. But is that the way we want our country to be going forward? I'd like it to be a little bit more democratic, a little bit more majority driven. Blatant, what do you think?
Well, first on what you were saying about touching on slavery and how the government is set up, just look at the Electoral College. Like they literally gave former slave-holding states more voting power to account for the slaves that they no longer had.
Right.
It's what a system. But just touching on just this survey, what I actually found really surprising was like 1/5 of the respondents said that like these people that said that they want America declared to be a Christian nation, they describe themselves as secular or that they were of a non-Christian faith. And why is that surprising? Why would there be such a contradiction, right? It's not a shock to me. You're never going to guess why.
Why?
It's because Christian nationalism isn't about making the nation more Christian. It's not about making it more Christ-like. It's an excuse to be racist.
Okay, cool.
And I know there's somebody in the audience right now that's saying, here he goes again, making everything about race. I'm sorry, my skeptic brain keeps fishing out obvious realities. It's a curse. But Christian nationalism is simply, it's built that wall with more steps. And to answer the initial question posed by the actual article, it's not Christian in the least. Show me in the Bible where Jesus said, assimilate or go back to where you came from. Where did Jesus say, be kind to your neighbor unless they don't speak that? Like, if they don't speak no American, you don't have to be, keep them over there. That's not in the Bible, right? And it's also not an American value. This is a democracy. It's bring in your huddled masses, all that jazz, all these magical language that we keep throwing out to keep this propaganda train going. But that's not what we actually do. We have Christian nationalists. It makes me so sad. Cynthia, please cheer me up.
Okay. Anyone want to hear a joke?
No, I'm kind of worried.
Like three Christian nationalists walk into a bar. Never mind. Um, it's kind of funny because like this is like reading this article. I'm so remember like BB, you were talking about earlier how you were torn about like our first segment. I'm torn here, and this is the reason why. I'm torn specifically concerning, is there a difference in Christian nationalism and Christianity? Now, on surface, I would say yes, right? And especially since I was a person who supposedly, practiced Christianity for the majority parts of my life, even though that I too have a shrinking Scotsman, according to certain people. When it came to my now non-faith compared to my faith in yesteryear. But when practicing said Christianness, there were certain things that I thought that I felt that was aligned with the Bible that were absolutely correct to me. Like I really pushed the whole thing about, marriages between a man and a woman, cis man, cis woman. I have also pushed forth the whole notion of like pointing out certain people, like if they practice this particular way, then they're not really Christian, they're only pretending, because this is this type of stuff that we would hear over the pulpit, especially if you go to a church that happens to be a bit more fundamentalist than not, right? So, and I guess that's the reason why we have over 45,000 different denominations, because we have over 45,000 different opinions about how to practice Christianity. And I even remember having this conversation specifically with with a really good friend of mine that is still a Christian. And we were discussing the whole issues sparked up with the latest gun mass shootings, like in Nashville and then recently in Louisville, and how we seem as a body politic to be so arrested on what to do because our government is so gummed up and wanting to again embrace some of these really problematic thinking in order for us to not pass like proper legislation when it comes to protecting people who just want to leave their house without getting shot with an AR-15. I mean, like, wow, that's wow, that's something, I'll tell you. But but still, even when I was speaking with her, and I would say that like a lot of our politics are pretty in line. We have a tendency to be a little bit more left leaning than most. But some of the same sentiments that marriages between a man and a woman, and being gay is still being a sin, and trans people, what the hell is that? You're still a man, and even if you call yourself a woman because you have a penis. I mean, these are things that I'm hearing coming out of her mouth, and I'm just and even though like she's not saying that they should be killed or should be taken away, their rights should be taken away of and things like that, you would still hear, but that's still a man, and so when you even have a person who is considered Christian or what have you, but still hold on to these particular sentiments that are quite committal to Christian nationalism, is there a difference? I don't know. And I mean, like, and to me, that's concerning, because like if you even have like a person who may be more left leaning, more social leaning, and they do see a problem because of their beliefs, their faith, what have you, if they are talked to by Christian nationalists, especially who happen to be lawmakers, they can possibly be pulled along to also be arrested as well because they share those same fundamental values. Which makes me very frustrated because I don't necessarily know what the solution is. And with that, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to just give it back to the room, and so that we can go ahead and wrap this particular up because we do have another segment to get to. If we can go ahead and just get some final thoughts here, Aaron, I'm coming to you, then Dr. Rich, and then Blatant. Just go ahead and just close us out.
Yeah, this article kind of confused me because it seemed like they didn't understand, or they didn't want to state how dangerous Christian nationalism is as a movement, as an ideal. These are people that claim that they want to increase the morality of our country. But yes, their reason for being moral is because God said so.
Yeah.
If your reason for being moral is because someone told you to do something, you have no morality. You have no morality. You can't defend it. You can't reason with it. And fortunately, like I mentioned earlier, this government the way our Constitution is written, it allows the minority to have a louder voice than they do. So take comfort in the fact that these views from Christian nationalism, they're not the majority view. Most people do not hold these views. They do not want these views. And we need people in states that have more voting power that want to go in a Christian direction to step up and do work and get these people out of office and get these policies out and get pro-humanist policies in. Blatant?
I agree with everything you just said, and I would just say, hey, conservatives, what would Jesus do? Try that for once.
Flip over a table. Flip over a money changer table.
Yeah.
And then build another one because he's a carpenter. He got hands like that.
Yeah. Jesus was so pro-capitalism when he saw it going off in the temple. He went nuts. So that's, that's pro-capitalism. And there's another thing about Jesus, if someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other cheek, then pull out an AK-47 and mow them down. That's I read that passage. Very odd. Yeah, vote. This is true of everywhere. We're in this weird situation in the UK saying our democracy is not a democracy. Our first past the post system allows a party that more people don't want in power than do to have absolute power for 5 years. And it's just very annoying. But the only way you can change that is to vote for a party that wants a different system and get in there. And I'm going to say what a lot of people say. Sometimes voting is really good. Get out there and vote. If you're someone young watching this who thinks, I don't know if voting makes a difference, it does. It's the only way you can make a difference, except for standing. Stand somewhere, stand in something, school posts, whatever. Because the more people with different views standing to be voted, the more things will change. So there's my part of political broadcast. I shall step back from the microphone there.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you for that, everybody. And I just wanted to just end with this particular quote from the article when it said that why should we assume, though the trends are irreversible and that most of today's Americans are beyond the reach of a message that has reached so many for so long. Earlier periods of secularization in America have given way to periods of Christian renewal. Is the next Christian revival just around the corner? It seems hard to believe, but surely not impossible. Sobering.
You're making me sad. You're making me sad.
I know.
I just like to thank God for the internet, because all those revivals came because people didn't have information. Thank God.
It's a two-edged sword, the internet.
Yeah, I give me a minute. I'll fall down a rabbit hole in a minute. Speaking of rabbit holes, you can fall down the rabbit hole of becoming a member. Yes, you can. You can become a member of the channel for as little as 99 cents per month. Click the join button below the video, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. And we also have merch. So visit tiny.cc/merch. ACA. That's tiny.cc/merch ACA to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. And you can check out our new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And all ACA shows feature a special limited edition item each month. So please make sure to check out the store for NP merch and merch from all other shows. And then we're going to go into our final segment, which Blatant is going to take us in. And hopefully this will be a little bit lighter so you guys won't be so sad. And I'm so sorry for bumming you out. Wait.
Let's take this up a notch.
Cool.
All right. So now In Go Woke, Go Broke news, we have
Mm.
a segment brought to you by the most fragile snowflakes this side of the Colorado Rockies.
Nice.
In this segment, we'll be discussing Bud Light partnering with a trans influencer named Dylan Mulvaney. You might have heard of her. Um, and how this partnership has, in a shocking twist, taken everybody by surprise, caused right wing backlash. This story comes to us by way of NBC News, and it was penned by Jay Vele, and it was published on April 5th, 2023. Jay, if I butchered your name, I'm sorry. All right. So this segment is one of my favorite things about right-wing outrage at all. It always provides me with a new person to follow and support. Because like most things I'll just say these people that they get angry about, they remain the small, loud minority. So all they're doing is shining a light on an influencer that I probably never would have heard of. So thanks for that. And I'd especially like to thank a washed up rapper who couldn't get attention with his music anymore. So he joined the grift that keeps on giving and right wing outrage. This man went out, spent his money on Bud Light, and then took that beer that he had already spent money on, mind you, follow me here, and then he filmed himself shooting the beer. They already have your money, sir. They don't care. But of course, the point of this is not to stick it to the man. It's not to stick it to the company. It's not to actually take a stand at all. It's always, always, always within this grift. It's about views, and it's actually kind of pitiful. Aaron, what do you think?
I think social media is a terrible, terrible thing. And I think we should spend as little time on it as possible, unless you're watching our videos and liking and subscribing them. Of course. The problem I have with social media is that it's the loud voices that get heard, and they're not necessarily the popular voice. They're not necessarily the consensus voice. They're just really loud. Kind of like it's easier to destroy than it is to build something. It's easier to be loud and offended than it is, because all the calm people are like, oh, that's cool. That's a cute little video. I really enjoyed what she was doing, which I did. I watched it and it was cute. It was fun. And then you move on to the next post. But all these people, these snowflakes that are getting outraged over it and shooting their beer and boycotting Budweiser, it makes me roll my eyes. How did this news story measure this outrage? How do they, when they say, oh, people are outraged, how are they measuring that people are actually outraged? Social media is the equivalent to anecdotal evidence, in my view. And so when the news are sharing, well, this happened on social media, so things are happening on social media. I really wish journalistic standards would change so they could just ignore most of anything that's ever posted on social media, because it's not news. People getting outraged over this is not news. Rich, what do you have?
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that I see all the time in the press over here and also in America is outrage as anger as, and it'll be one bloke somewhere in a shed who read something and got upset about it, so put a tweet out, and it won't actually be widespread rage or anything. One thing that struck me earlier today about this whole story is what it tells us about what's actually happening in American politics. Not what you see on Fox News and all that, but what's actually happening. That is, who normally are the Budweiser demographic? Who would you think Budweiser would like to aim at? Well, it's the kind of people who are shooting their cans and getting angry. It's the slightly older generation, the top end of my lot, the Gen Xers and the Boomers. They're your usual Budweiser people. But Budweiser is saying, hang on, we're not selling enough beer. We need to open up to a whole new group of people. We need to open up to the people who have the power and the money these days. Look at that young trans influencer. That's the kind of person we want drinking Bud Light. Let's approach them. And that kind of tells me that despite what you see in the outrage headlines, things are actually swinging a different way politically over in the United States, because even Budweiser wants trans, hip, young people to be associated with it. Even Budweiser, that stuff that claims to be a beer, but tastes a little bit like urine. So, it's like, it's amazing that they've managed to convince trendy, hippie, Gen Z, sorry, trans people to drink urinal beer. So it's cool. And I take it as a massive positive that they are seeing that this group of people are irrelevant now. We don't need to market to them. They haven't got the power, they haven't got the money, they're either going to die soon or no one's going to care about them anymore. We need this bunch here now while they're up and coming. So yeah, it's all positive really in the end. So hey.
Rich, how do you really feel about American beer? That's what I want to know.
You've got some great beers, otherwise it ain't one of them.
From a person who doesn't drink beer at all, I will take I'll take your lead on this one. Guys, I know that this whole thing is about, Dylan. I believe their name is it Dylan Mulvaney, if I'm not mistaken, and how she was basically targeted by right-wing offense because she was chosen as the next spokesperson for Budweiser because she has a very large following on Instagram, over 10 million followers. I mean, like, if you have like a person who's an influencer who has over 10 million followers and you want to sell more of your product, it makes more sense to actually approach a person with that much popularity. And also that, she stands for something. She is a known trans activist. But, regardless of that, guys, I'm sorry right now, but it's been a minute, y'all, since I had a Cynthia epic rant. And I'm about to give y'all one in 3, 2, 1. Oh my fucking God. Please, right-wing conservatives, pick a fucking new shtick. You all lost your minds and started destroying Nike shoes back in 2018 when Colin Kaepernick was on the ad saying believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything just because he actually kneeled because of police violence. Y'all lost y'all shit when Lena Bloom had become the first trans person to appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, burning issues and actually becoming the best-selling issue of Sports Illustrated ever. But you all will film yourself, I can't deal with Sports Illustrated no more. Burn it, burn it, burn it. And they made money off of your dumb ass. And then y'all lost your shit over the fucking Eminem for not wearing thigh-high boots. Are you freaking serious? You even lost your shit over Cheryl Lee Ralph singing Lift Every Voice and Sing, talking about why you gotta sing that. It's Black National Anthem. It ain't that the Super Bowl? What's wrong with the Star Spangled Banner? Have you ever read the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner? Of course you haven't. It was written by an American. It's an American song. Last time I checked, the Black Americans were actually Americans, and it was during February. That's Black History Month. I need y'all to stop. Y'all getting on my damn nerves. I'm done with my rant. Blatant.
That was incredible. I was so glad I was here for that. And now to respond to Dr. Rich, as a native St. Louisan, I have spent my entire adult life defending Budweiser because I remember growing up and driving past the Anheuser-Busch facility that's in St. Louis and feeling that pride of knowing like this represents my home. And then I grew up and I tasted my home's representative and I spent the rest of my life pretending to enjoy it. So if anybody has earned the right to criticize Budweiser, it's me, damn it. Okay? All right, so with that said, I'm going to go into what I agree with Rich about. It's like good on them for being inclusive, sticking to their guns when they were faced with all this anger and vitriol from their actual base. Good for them. But at the same time, like I've said, I've earned the right to criticize. So I have to say I'm still not impressed because they're a company like corporation that has weighed the risk versus the reward, and inclusion is good for business right now. So good job, but not fooling me. And I do have a message for Dylan Mulvaney as well. I have to thank conservatives for putting me on game, as kids used to say in the 90s. Now that I've discovered her, like her content, I'm a fan. Do your thing. But I have to critique her like the ad that she did, I have to critique it because what she said in closing it, and I quote, "Go team. Whatever team you love, I love." That statement goes against my beliefs. Okay. That kind of behavior shouldn't be supported. And this is what we need to be protecting our kids from bandwagon fans. Okay. Listen, I need y'all to pay attention. If my son sees that and he thinks that that's okay to just jump from team to team, depending on who's winning, that's a problem for me, Dylan. Not in my house. Not in my house. That's all I got to say.
Uh, for a person who was actually famous on the nonprofits for saying "fuck Green Bay," I hear you. I hear you. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. I was about to go into another rant, especially with Caitlyn Jenner, and I'm not even gonna go there.
Can I just chime in real quick? I
Yeah,
need
go
y'all to
ahead.
realize that Caitlyn Jenner, like, she is literally Candace Owens for trans people. Like,
Yeah.
that's her job. Her job is to rail against the people that the right wing think that she represents. She's their black friend. I just
You,
wanted to put that out there.
and one of the things I want to say this, and then I want to give final thoughts, and we can go ahead and close out. Is that the kind of crazy thing about it is that Caitlyn Jenner, went ahead and actually transitioned, and the thing that Dylan actually advocates for would be a protection for Caitlyn Jenner. So for you to even say "boo, Caitlyn," I need for you to have the children say several seats. Final thoughts as we actually go ahead and close out. Aaron, won't you go ahead and start, and then Dr. Rich, and then Blatant will take us out.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about tonight about outrage and the right and Christian nationalism, all that good stuff. And it makes me think about something in psychology called an extinction burst. A lot of times when you are trying to get rid of a bad behavior, either in yourself or someone else, sometimes just before you're able to overcome that bad behavior, it increases. It increases in frequency and in behavior. And I like to look at the outrage that we see in the world and just kind of look at it and the Christian nationalism. And my hopeful part of me, my optimistic side, sees it as an extinction burst. I pop my popcorn and I just watch these people slowly getting less and less powerful and slowly, going down and sinking down and having less and less of a voice. And I just hope that for anybody that's listening, that's a member, that's a citizen of the United States, that you at a minimum vote, and more that you stand up and you take some form of activism in making this country a better place, a more progressive place for everybody that lives in it. Rich?
Yeah, echo all that. That's all really good. The Extinction Burst is a good example as well. We hear a lot of, to use another well-known phrase, empty vessels making a lot of sound at the moment, and it's fascinating to me because I do think, and over here until recently, when our current government decided they were going to blame people in small boats for everything, they were on the verge of getting pretty much wiped out. Not just losing, but coming fourth. And I think that's where things are headed. Funnily enough, it's quite interesting for me. I find it that quite fascinating. But yeah, it is important. Whatever you believe, whatever you think, if you're progressive or otherwise, I shall say, get out and vote, get activated, get in there, get involved, and try and stop these people who want your nation to be more Christian and who want to get upset because, God forbid, if he was able to exist and forbid things, that is, God forbid, a trans person might like a beer that someone on this panel has to pretend that they like. I feel really sorry for them. But yeah, it's interesting. And there's a lot of, quite often I found myself on this show talking about Christian nationalism. And it does seem like the dragon thrashing around before it dies. So I can't wait till the day I come on this show to say, Christian nationalism, it appears to have died. Let's all hope that day comes, hey?
Hey, Blatant.
So I mean, like, just to piggyback off what y'all said, voting is important, and I need people like us, skeptics. I understand that we're burnt out. We're tired of this. We're tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. It's gotten old. But what we need to understand is when you don't vote for the less of the two evils, the most evil wins. and we end up with what we have now. So let's let that dragon thrash and put it down permanently. Like slay the dragon. Okay, get out and vote.
And also, as part of that, it's not just the vote for president that's important. That's the least important vote you're going to cast. The important votes are your local people. They have the most impact. And then your congressmen and your senators. You've got to vote for congressmen and senators. They're way more important than your president.
To echo that for any British viewers, we have our local elections in the beginning of May. Get out there and vote at those local elections, because again, they're the guys who get your local streets clean and get your potholes fixed and get your bins collected, the stuff that actually matters day to day. And they also have a knock-on effect up the chain as to what happens in politics. So get out and vote here too.
Word. And I got another word before we go. Hold on. I got words. Join our social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofits hosts on the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. Also, we value your feedback, and I have been opening my emails lately. So please tell us what you like and what you don't like, and you can do it in the comments below. And you can also email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And also visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org on the latest of what's been happening, and feel free to contact the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org. And you guys rock. I definitely enjoy having all of you all on, listening to your very wonderful points of view. And with that being said, everybody needs to continue to watch as we bring back wonderful hosts every week on Sundays at 3 p.m. Central Time. And with that being said, I don't know if we have that much, can we do like about a 10-second rap from everybody? If we can just do like a rapid fire. Blatant, you want to go real quick? 10 seconds or less? Go.
What would Jesus do? Conservatives, what would he do?
Word, flip a table. Dr. Rich, go.
And if Jesus were around today, he'd vote and get involved in politics. So do that.
Bam. What rendered to Caesar? And then also Aaron. Bam.
If we're such a Christian nation, why do we still have poverty?
Ooh. I take mine back. I want his.
Man, the whole time I'm just like, damn. What they said, y'all. And thank you guys again for watching and listening. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.